And there came a day unlike. Wait, no, that's been done. Who knows what evil lurks in. No, that is that other thing. What has yellow skin and rights? Ah, forget it. You're listening to Panelology. Excelsi, oh, damn it.
Welcome to episode 234 of Panelology. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian.
How are you doing, Brian? Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I am actually doing really well.
Got some much-deserved vacation time? Much-needed vacation time?
Yeah, very, very definitely to all of those, yes.
Caught up on all your backlogged comics reading?
You're cute.
Well, there's a first time for me to hear everything. No, we both had to play catch-up this week, because I didn't get most of my reading done last week for the Spooktacular.
Okay.
Little peek behind the curtain. Normally, we record those in, late September?
Yeah, pretty early.
Yeah, and in doing it that way, it means that we can actually kind of stay caught up in comics the week it releases, and the following week is not normally a big rush to get through 40-something issues.
Yeah, because we're able to spread it out a little bit more.
Yeah. This year, however, the cards did not fall that way. So, it's been a weird reading week, and we're going to hit stuff from this week today and stuff from last week, and even at least one book from the week before that.
All right. Well, I mean, I've got 4 weeks of reading that I'm just kind of all throwing together at this point. So who knows where mine's coming from at this? I don't even know.
But bear with us, and there are a lot of things that maybe actually will get shuffled into the next episode or two as well.
Yeah.
For instance, Catwoman 26, which I think will be more fun to talk about with Brian than talk to Brian about.
Yeah.
Talk at Brian about. That's how words work.
Sometimes.
If you're lucky. But with no further ado, Dark Knights, Death Metal, number 4.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Back to the main series after a month off.
You know what though? I read the Multiverse End one right before this one, and I like, as much as I like the main story, I like the add-ins equally as well. So, it was nice to get back to the main story though. I was ready for it.
I was curious how you would feel about those tie-ins, because I think the last time we talked, we both said something to the effect of enjoying them as what they are, but being ready to see the story move forward. And I think 4 finally does that. So I was curious how you felt about Multiverse End and...
It very much. I think that's why one, because I kind of have had a bit of a break here. It's all kind of fresh to me right now.
Gotcha.
But the other thing is, Multiverses End, I think, also did that. I think it moved the story forward more than some of these others have.
That's fair too. Yeah.
Yeah, because it had a very specific purpose that they were trying to accomplish, and we kind of see that full fruition in this one, in number 4 here.
Yeah, I would say 4 picks up where each of the 3 one-shots from the last month have left off, right?
That's exactly right, yes.
So we see the results of destroying the towers. We see where Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman not just wind up, but kind of how they deal with being where they're at.
Yep.
And then we get sort of the consequence of the Flashes getting the Mobius chair.
Yeah, those consequences, definitely. Yikes. So, yeah, the other thing, and I want to point this out, this is at the bottom of page 2. I was so happy to see Ambush Bug in this.
Yes. Ambush Bug.
just a nice confirmation that he still is in continuity in DC. I love it.
Yes.
Beautiful. Um, yeah, and then we definitely get a few pages that kind of take us through the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman locations, right? And we kind of left off in the last one where they were going to, these worlds in the Dark Multiverse where Crisis on Infinite Earths, Final Crisis, and Infinite Crisis were happening, right? And they were going to capture that crisis energy right before the heroes were victorious. And we pointed out to them that they made the horrible mistake of forgetting that, in the Dark Multiverses, they're dark because the things did not go well.
Yeah.
Oops. So, yeah. And flat out, straight up 100%, Batman and Superman fail.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's all on Wonder Woman to just, like, talk her way out of everything being destroyed.
Well, and what I love is it did end up being a role-playing win, not a combat win.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that is... I'm going to call that my second favorite part of this issue, because for reasons passing explanation, Jonah Hex and Harley Quinn remain the emotional core of this.
Yeah, baffling. Just absolutely, but not unwelcome, just baffling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing I like about this series, possibly more than those two, is I still love Wonder Woman's hair. I can't get over it every time I see it.
It is very, very good.
Like that needs to be for her hair forever now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Wonder Woman basically convinces Superboy Prime that he needs to help them instead of fighting against them. So what essentially, I mean, the other ones are very, Apocalypse has taken over and basically is ruling the multiverse or the universe that Superman ends up in.
Yeah.
And the Anti-Monitor is destroyed everything, all of existence in the one and Infinite Earths, right? And Wonder Woman ends up talking to Superboy Prime, who has essentially what the reason that he's doing this is he's made a deal with the Batman Who Laughs that he has created a world where the ideals of each of these characters, think like 60s versions of them,
Yeah.
right, exist, and they're just the super friends, and they play with kids in the park, and they they're the Hostess Fruit Cup versions of these characters, right?
It's kind of like, remember that episode of the Justice League cartoon where a group of the Justice League's members get thrown into this parallel world or whatever, where it's like Silver Age off-brand versions of each of them?
Yeah.
Like that is that kind of idealized Americana apple pie take that this reminds me of.
Yeah. And so on this world, like, the heroes always win, and they've pretty much vanquished evil, and so like everyone's happy, and he has basically made a deal to preserve this world because he thinks there should be one good world, and the heroes have changed from this idyllic version of themselves over the years. And like Wonder Woman's like, nope, you're right, we sure have. But you can't not change. Change is the only thing that is constant, right?
Yeah, like, and I love her argument that no, life gets more complex and more complicated as time goes on, and also as you grow up, and like, you have to learn to change and deal with that, and you can still be true to what matters and react to the world differently.
Right. And she talks about how, they can't, and I think this is one of the key things that you should keep in mind moving forward in this is, she goes, I want you to picture a multiverse where all worlds exist, an infinite multiverse stretching where each Earth is unique, but they're all connected. So it makes me wonder if they're going back to this idea of an infinite multiverse.
I mean, there's a part of me that wants to even say that, like, Snyder has said that is the end game of this.
Yeah.
And that may just be I've filled in some blanks and read between some lines, honestly. Yeah. But I can't imagine that that's not the case.
And I think it goes back even further than that to Jeff Johns, some of his comments about Rebirth, right?
Yeah.
Where they said the whole idea was to put everything back on the table in some way.
Well, and if you want to look at an even bigger picture,
Yeah.
and this is almost maybe a weird called shot because I don't think this has ever been true, but we got the news back at DC Fandom that all of the movies and all of the TV shows, and I mean, really, if you go as far back as the Infinite Crisis crossover, right?
Yep.
That's really, I think, the thing that started this ball rolling, where we saw just about every TV series that DC has put out represented in some way, where we've seen the movies represented in some way, both like back to the older 80s Batman movies and the 60s Burt Ward Batman, and
Yep.
all the way up to the most recent Flash. Like, all of that is a multiverse now. And my question becomes, like, why have all of your film stuff in a multiverse but not have all the comics and cartoons as part of the same multiverse?
Yeah. I'll up you one even further than that, Alex.
All the Marvel stuff is in continuity too?
Sort of, in that one of the things that they that was pointed out in the Multiverses End one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is part of that one is John Stewart explaining to Owlman like a super brief history recap of the crises and what happened with them,
Yeah.
right? And one of the things he mentions is when the source wall broke, right? It opened the multiverse up to what they would call the omniverse, right?
Right.
And I think that, what you end up with is the DC multiverse that exists with these infinite possibilities. And, one world is the Arrow world, and one world is the Supergirl TV world,
Yeah.
and, all these different things that can exist. And by the way, that way, if they ever want to do comics in those, they can, because they exist. But then when you talk about beyond the source wall, right, maybe you have other multiverses like the Marvel multiverse or anybody else they want to then cross over with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gets a little fuzzy too, because at one point I want to say in the first Dark Knight's Metal, or maybe No Justice, I don't know, it all kind of blurs after a point, right?
Yeah.
They talked about a multiverse of multiverses, which was sort of
Right.
the workaround for, yes, there are 52 Earths, but there are really more than that, and those multiverses are their own multiverses. Like, I don't know, maybe at some point just all those bubbles burst and it's all one multiverse, and the Omniverse is what you're talking about. Or maybe that's what Omniverse means. Like,
or maybe this is how the characters are thinking of it, and they'll find out that it's
Yeah.
really something different. Who knows?
Like,
we don't know the answers to that at this point. But I do think the core to take out of this is that really they are going to completely leave it wide open to be able to truly do and pull in anything that they want from anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case.
Yep.
And
wow, what is this now? 3.5 years in the making, something like that.
Who really even knows how to count that? Because, like, what
I know.
Like, what they're doing now was not part of the Rebirth plan. Like, I don't think that's
but
a shock to say.
I do think some of the core ideas that they had in the Rebirth plan are part of this.
Yes.
My point.
Like, yeah. I think we're coming up on, in a very broad sense, a similar end game.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's probably going to look a little different, and has definitely been executed in a different way than what was originally planned.
Hey, Alex, now we just need to find the Earth where the whole Rebirth plan did happen, just to see what that would have.
I mean, in an infinite multiverse, it has to exist.
Exactly, that's my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Wonder Woman talks Superboy Prime into basically kind of joining their side. And the interesting thing about that is he comes back with them.
Yeah, which this is kind of outside of my realm of knowledge. I know the major beats with Superboy Prime: gets mad, punches reality, brings Jason Todd back to life. That's it. That's about all I know.
I mean, you got the important parts of it, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so you do realize we kind of now have 3 Superboys that are running around, right?
No, we have. Wait, hang on. How many do we have? No, we have 3. You're right.
Yeah.
I was not. For some reason, I was counting John twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, yeah, well, because John just grew up. That's
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
We have
Yeah, 'cause
John.
you have John. You have Connor, and you have Superboy Prime. Yeah, Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a Superman variant coming out next week with like a more realistically drawn Superman, Superboy, Supergirl, and Connor on it. And looking at a realistically drawn Connor, all I can picture is Jughead from Riverdale as Superboy. And I need it now?
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, and then we end with somebody pulling a Batman trick to, hey, you're gonna send all this here? Yeah, I knew you were gonna do that. I rerouted it to me.
Talk about a game of musical chairs, right?
Oh my god. Yeah. So and this, I mean, the last comment is basically he's going to create what he's calling the last 52, which is one of the one-shots that's going to be coming up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Before we totally move on from Death Metal 4, have you noticed the ad in the back of it? Like, there's a page featuring something in the back of it?
I'm looking at it right now again, because I did notice this earlier when I was reading this.
So I know I'm not sure that photographic is the right word for how my memory works, but I'm good at like recalling images. And I know I've looked at this page because like the graphic layout of it was familiar to me, but I had not stopped and read the words on this page.
Oh, but boy, does your world change when you do.
So I read this page this week and then went and looked up the concept album, essentially, that it is talking about. And you can see a video for the first episode online. It's like lines and dialogue from Death Metal #1, acted out, which unfortunately does not include the character who I think is the source of the tone of both of our voices.
That would have to be Superman.
Yes, that would be.
Okay.
I am a little bummed that you did in fact look closely at this because I was gonna try to make you guess.
100 years wouldn't have guessed this person. No chance.
Well,
no chance. Although I can give people what I would consider to be a good hint and pointing them down the right path to making a guess.
Well, before you do that, hang on real quick.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to yet.
I messaged Jen. And I said to her, let me find it. I need you to guess, knowing that there is almost no chance any sane person would ever get this right, who voices Superman. She asks me to point her in a direction. I say, I'm guessing wrong isn't helpful. One of this person's best-known credits includes the word night in its title. To which she responds, no, they didn't. No. Yeah, apparently that was too good of a hint, because everyone I gave that hint got it in one.
My hint was going to be, it is not the failed Nicolas Cage as Superman. But if you think of Nicolas Cage as Superman, you're definitely headed in the right direction. Like, keep going past that, and you may arrive at this person.
It's David fucking Hasselhoff.
It's David Hasselhoff.
Which brings me to my next question. Is he now the oldest person to play Superman?
Oh,
he is 68.
Yeah, because he's older than George Reeves was, yeah. And that would have been, yeah.
The next time the Arrowverse does a crossover, if they do not bring David fucking Hasselhoff on as Superman, I'm done.
I mean, because, you know,
and they have to give him a musical number.
Oh shit. Okay, now you're going too far, sir. But yeah, first of all, I don't even know why this thing that they have done exists. But then
Well,
what?
I think, and I may be wrong here, but I think it may be a little bit Greg Capullo's doing, because he has a music background and loose connections to, among other people, Zakk Wylde, who has written some of the music for them.
Well, he voices a character in this too.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that. I saw Scott Snyder was. Who was he voicing?
Sergeant Rock.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah. I like, just to experience this, I kind of can't wait.
Well, you can go to whatever URL is on there, and in fact,
dcdeathmetal.world.
This episode comes out on the 26th of October. Yep. I believe Chapter 2, which I'm hoping has Superman in it, comes out on the 27th.
Okay.
Because only Chapter 1 was there when I looked on.
Got it. Yeah, it is definitely something. Like I said, I was reading books, prepping for today, and saw this, and I was like, that will have to get checked out after recording is done. Yeah.
I don't know who any of the other people doing voices in this are. I imagine metal musicians.
There's a couple of them that I recognize the names, but I can't remember where from. I may do a quick look up while we're.
Anyway, it's well past time to move on from that.
It is, absolutely.
Very quickly, the death metal Robin King one-shot. This issue, I think, on the one hand, I would call it more of a character study than anything that pushes the plot forward a lot. We do get, the explanation of how the Robin King kept his personality after becoming a Robin. And, we get to see the process by which the Batman Who Laughs made his Robins. But this is split between the Robin King basically taking down all the heroes on his world and his fight with Harley and Jonah Hex and Swamp Thing. And even, I think, the moment right after the Trinity get back from their Crisis universes.
Right.
But this really kind of delves into the Robin King's motivation, which is basically to say, hey, all you kids out there, we don't need adults to set norms and tell us how to live, which is not the take I expected, but I think works really well. And creates a conflict between him and the Batman Who Laughs that on the one hand, you can definitely see why they're on the same team, but on the other hand, maybe the Robin King is not as loyal as he seems. I think this feels like something that will pay off in the future in a pretty big way.
Okay.
Then Justice League 55, after everyone gets caught in the Starro field, Lex and Nightwing work together to save the team, basically. That's kind of the whole issue. It is a really sad issue for Detective Chimp.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Just gonna warn everyone on that. And now we can move on from Dark Knight's death metal.
Yeah, I will just say the other name that I did recognize, which is the person, is Charles Fleischer. And I was like, I know that name. So I did look him up. He is a comedian and actor mostly known probably from the 80s. Stuff, from some 80s stuff, and he's one of those, if you see his face you'll go, oh yeah, he's been in everything from Nightmare on Elm Street to Who Framed Roger Rabbit to Polar Express to just a ton of stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, now for something considerably more upbeat, Rorschach #1.
This one was, I like it, but it did not start off like I would have expected it to.
Same.
I probably should have. Now, now knowing what it is, I probably should have thought of it and said, okay, yeah, this makes more sense. It is very, very noir-esque.
Yes, and I think I like the idea of King working in noir, which is not we've seen him tell spy stories in Grayson,
Right. Yep.
but I don't think we've seen him work in something totally noir, and I dig that.
I do too. So this starts with essentially the whole premise of this, which is, I mean, that'll summarize this whole first issue because this whole thing is basically setup of the story. Is there's an election coming up between Redford, right, and who's the other person that's running against him? I can't remember the name now, but it's like all over the place.
Yeah.
Turley, right? And there's a rally where this Turley person is speaking, and there's essentially an assassination attempt that is foiled at this rally. And the two people who were the attempted assassins were this girl named Laura Cummings, who was dressed in like a cowgirl type outfit, who is not a character that we know, right?
Right.
That I know of. And somebody dressed as Rorschach.
Now, I remember seeing in an interview, the source material for this book is the original Watchmen.
Uh-huh.
That I don't know if it draws intentionally on the HBO show, but they did say that they would do their best not to conflict with anything in the HBO show.
Right.
And the other primary reference for this is the Watchmen tabletop role-playing guidebook.
Oh my word. Okay. I can tell you flat, I have no experience whatsoever with.
I was curious. I didn't even know it existed until I read that interview.
I don't. It seems like I probably did know that it existed and purposefully avoided it because it sounded like something that would just make me upset.
Now, I have the Authority tabletop role-playing guidebook.
Okay.
But I was not aware of the Watchmen one.
Okay. But yeah, so there's this person that is investigating, who these people really are, and like why they were trying to assassinate, and there's a couple of questions about like, the Secret Service, instead of like going through a door, blew a hole in the wall on the other side of this catwalk to get to these people.
Yeah.
And yet they supposedly were only supposed to think this was like possibly a crank call, like, and not know that it was serious. So there's some questions is the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also get flashbacks throughout the issue.
Uh-huh.
Each of which is colored in a different color.
Yes.
And I had to wonder if like the timeline is Roy G. Biv.
Oh.
Like, do the flashbacks, because that's a tool that I've seen some colorists use here and there. Like Megan Wilson used it in an issue of Unstoppable Wasp. There was something this week too that did it. I'm blanking on what. Oh, Fantastic Four did it this week. But I wonder if like there's an implied kind of timing to each of them because we see them with narration from present day over.
Right.
But I wonder if, like, there's a sequence that also makes sense that's not what they imply, that is, here's your hint, it's all on the color wheel, right?
Right. And then, I'm not going to say what it is, but there's a fairly large bombshell dropped on the last page.
Yes.
Yeah. But this looks really good. And here's the other thing. We don't know this person that's doing the investigation, do we?
Unless it's supposed to be one of the cops from the original. I don't think so.
Maybe so. Yeah, I would have to go back and
but
look.
I'd also expect him to be older than he looks.
Right, that's fair. That's very fair. And so I will say there is one, like you were saying, they're not going to try not to contradict the HBO show, right?
Yeah.
There's one comment that is a single comment that's made that made me think of the TV show, and that's something about even after Oklahoma.
Yeah. I picked up on that too, and I haven't even watched the show yet.
Right. So, but yeah, this is I don't dislike this at all so far.
Yeah. No, I'm very into it.
I certainly don't think there's enough here for me to make a judgment one way or the other yet, but I don't, it hasn't done anything to upset me yet. I'll say that.
How about Dune House Atreides #1?
Ooh, Dune House Atreides.
That incidentally is the unit of measure by which I consume Oreos. Yeah, I'll have Atreides.
Well done, sir. Well
Thank
done.
you.
I I enjoyed this a lot. That being said, I don't know that you even could have followed this if you don't know the story of Dune and very specifically even maybe have read this book, House Atreides.
Hmm.
Um,
So this is an adaptation of an existing Dune book?
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, there's the Dune series, and I won't go into what all of those are, but not long ago, I say not long ago, in the terms of books, not long ago, it was probably, I don't know, probably 10, 12 years ago, something. I don't know. In
So
that time frame-ish.
February?
Right, yeah,
March?
right, yeah. Um, Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, Brian Herbert being Frank Herbert's son, wrote a series of books, House Atreides, House Harkonnen, and the Butlerian Jihad, I think, was part of the. I can't remember exactly. It's been a long time. But yeah, they wrote books which were basically telling of the time immediately before, like, and the leading up to of the Dune stuff.
Gotcha.
Right. Um, and this is an adaptation of that first one. And if you don't know that story and haven't read that, it's going to seem like kind of just a hodgepodge of scenes that are just thrown together, I think.
Hmm.
That being said, if you do know the story, it's kind of cool because it's just kind of cool to see an adaptation of some of these characters.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about Commanders in Crisis #1?
This is an interesting book. So this is from Image. It is, and go back here real quick. It is by Steve Orlando, and the art is by David Tinto, who is also credited as creator as well as artist. So, uh, there's he did the primary cover, and one of the covers, which I also got, was of course Stepan Shaik, because I had to.
Of course.
But this is an interesting book where essentially, and Dan DiDio actually wrote kind of an introduction page on the like a forward to this, and he talks about how it's really hard to keep track of all of the characters and plot it out and give each character their moment in these huge crossover books, right? And that essentially what Orlando was trying to do here is do that at the same time that he's actually introducing these characters who we have no idea who they are. He said, "So hats off, good luck, go." um, but I actually think he does a pretty good job, and it's
Cool.
not nearly as wild as an actual crossover event, because it mainly is able to focus in on this one team of characters, and introduce us to them. And the idea is that, with the exception of one of them, each of these characters was the only survivor of their version of Earth, where this
Okay.
crisis formed and their world was wiped out. And this one character here, whose name is Frontier, was able to basically pull them to her Earth. Right. Each of them on their Earth was the president at one point. Um, Including Nina, who is Frontier, was the first female president on this Earth.
Hence the name Commanders in Crisis. Got it.
Correct. Yeah, that it's why I point this out, right? On Earth J, Noah Rowe, who is prize fighter, was Earth's first American gay president. Scarlett Davis, who is Seer, who has like quantum ability. Prize fighter. I love this one. Is essentially a Superman-esque type character, right? Super strength, kind of invulnerability and all that. But basically, his powers are derived from and charged up by people supporting and promoting and applauding and cheering him on.
He's Tinkerbell.
Yeah, essentially. Uh, Earth K is America's first black woman president, and that's Scarlett Davis. She is Seer, and she has quantum abilities that she can use, but they cause issues. As in, she gets drained of power and will at some point run out, and then has to deal with these like quantum visions that she has as she recharges, kind of thing. There is Ignacio Mendez, who is Sawbones. On Earth D, he was America's first Latino president. And he is not a doctor, but he can essentially see into people and tell what's wrong with them, which also includes, like, when he's fighting, being able to tell what people's weaknesses are, like with internal organs and stuff, so he
Cool.
can hit them. Yeah. There's Shimuri Shamasi, who is Originator. She has the most interesting power. On Earth 8, she's America's first Pakistani woman president, and her name is Originator, and she has the ability to create new words that then cause reality to change for a period of time.
Interesting.
Yes. Yes. So think of it like creating a new word on Twitter that changes the zeitgeist for a period. But like she just speaks it and it comes into being. And then there's Frontier, who was the first woman president on this last existing Earth that we know of. Yeah. And she has pulled them in because they all know what it's like to lose their world, and they're all trying to fight on this world to preserve. And that's our introduction. That's what we get. And there's a page of fighting and that kind of stuff. But mostly it's that, and that is our first issue. Yes.
Cool.
I dig this so far. Yeah.
So is it trying to do like a sort of Black Hammer pastiche where every character has some recognizable analog at DC and Marvel? Or...
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not really.
Cool.
Yeah, these characters, like the most of like that would be Prize Fighter, right?
Yeah.
The rest of these are not immediately recognizable as somebody else. No.
Cool.
Nope.
How about champions? We talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago.
Or, many months ago, depending on how you look at it.
I mean, look, time is a construct and always in flux.
Well, the reason is because this feeds out of Outlawed, right?
Well, there's also that, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm, yeah. Wow. I simultaneously enjoyed and did not like parts of this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That feels in line with what I said, which was I like the way this is written. I like some of the ideas here, but I still don't know if the whole outlawed Kamala's Law thing needed to happen for me.
Yeah, and like I think, and plus I think they kind of overdid it in a couple of, like, it's a little too heavy-handed in a couple of things. Like the kid who, the principal yells at him and says that he's in violation of school code now just because he's wearing a hoodie that had a Champions logo on it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, was that necessary? Like,
but at the same time, like I actually liked that moment because I remember the sort of school principals, vice principals, teachers, whatever, using dress code bullshit to like single out students. I came from a high school with a high Latinx population, and kids would wear like soccer jerseys. And there were some kids who no one ever said anything to them, but the kids who kind of like had the reputation for being troublemakers or whatever, teachers would say, "Oh, well, that jersey has this beer logo that isn't for any beer manufacturer in the US that no one really recognizes on it. You need to go home and change." Like, that kind of nonsense, I remember enough that actually felt like a grounded moment to me.
I'm not saying it's not unreal. It just felt like, and maybe it was just the way it was, it felt very heavy-handed in portraying people going way over the top as to, and I get that there are people that would do that and react that way, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I can see that moment going either way.
And then the other one that I do have a problem with, because I just don't know that she would have done it, is Kamala basically makes this big public broadcast statement for all of the champions without ever having talked to any of them about it. And that does not seem like her to me.
Yeah, that is difficult. Like,
I could see her making that statement for herself, right?
Yeah.
Without telling anybody else. But like, just that, like, that's part of her thing, is she's not going to speak for other people without knowing that they're okay with it.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that I had a question about is, how old is Doreen Green?
18, 19?
Okay, I don't know why. I always thought she was older than that. I always thought she was like 21, 22.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the first issue of Unbeatable Squirrel Girl is her starting her first year in college.
Okay, and so yeah. The other thing is, I don't know that, were we ever given an age that is considered minor for this?
I think it's 21.
21.
I think
okay.
it's
All right.
if you're
So
under 21,
then it does
you
make
have to.
sense for her to be here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of had that same moment because I think this is that weird thing that happens in comics where like you have sort of like a graduating class of teenage characters who feel just so much older than others, like,
Yeah.
and
Like,
it tends to correlate to when they were introduced. So like if you asked me, like, Squirrel Girl would be older than the Young Avengers, who would be older than the Champions, but really, like, they're all kind of intermingled, and there's not that much age difference between any of them.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that fits. But yeah, we have Moon Girl and Wasp and Power Pack and all of the former champions and all of those folks here who they have a conversation with Kamala from her hospital bed, and there's some disagreement about how things should be handled.
Yeah.
And what they should be doing, specifically between Nova and Red Scarab.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to lead to something. I definitely think that's going somewhere. And then this new enforcement arm called Cradle shows up.
Tradle,
yes. Which all I could think of when they said Tradle was Tradle.
Glad it's not just me.
Okay. But who basically is enforcing this underage teenage vigilante outlaw thing.
Yeah.
And they show up to bust it up, and Wasp gets caught by them. Some don't think I'm okay with, but
Yeah. Meg and I both said when we talked about this issue, pretty much like, Nadia had better be okay. Do not dare hurt our sweet precious Nadia.
Oh my word, right? But yeah, so and then it's very clear that somebody turned in this meeting and like kind of fibbed out on them. And what I will say is kudos, and in a well done job, they do not try to hide that or make that a big thing. They tell us flat out at the end of this who it is.
Except I still think there's a twist.
Oh, of course I think there is too. But I'm saying I'm glad that's not the twist. Yeah. How's that?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like the twist is gonna be, no, it was Viv 2.0, the evil version of Viv who exists somewhere out there still.
Yeah. Which they pretty much came to terms with each other, I thought, but maybe not. I don't know. Well, I mean, because the other thing is, it could be Viv feeling guilty about this whole thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that Kamala got hurt. And now here's this is the one thing that I this is what will completely turn me off. Here's their one chance to not do something that's going to make me think that, wow, they really just didn't learn anything. And that is, if Viv is doing this because she thinks that her actions got Nadia hurt, and now she knows best, and for their own good, she's going to support this law and be against, the rest of her teammates about this, you're just turning it into Champion Civil War.
Yeah.
And in which case, isn't that exactly why they were created, was to not do that shit?
Well, and I think the other thing, too, that I am willing to chalk up to just being a consequence of the way all of the outlawed stuff got pushed back on the schedule, I could not stop thinking about that scene in Avengers Aftermath for Empire, where Tony and Cap and Thor are all standing around talking about how, yeah, that Civil War thing was a mistake. We really should support the kids.
Right. Yeah.
Like, okay, technically Cap does show up in Miles Morales. But beyond, like, a senator calls him to bust everyone out of jail. Where are they pushing back against this?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did think it was funny. Somebody points out, well, there is a loophole if you can find a mentor, right? And like we find out, Patriot has already signed up to be essentially what amounts to the sidekick, right? Of
Yeah.
Falcon, right? But somebody says, yeah, but have you seen the list of mentors? Nobody wants to end up with D-Man. That made me laugh.
That was a good moment.
So I am optimistically okay with this so far. I have concerns that they need to avoid, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Empire's Fallout, Fantastic Four number 25. Remind me, Brian, are you reading this series?
I am not reading Fantastic Four.
Okay.
I did read it during Empire, though.
So, granted, we have talked about the fact that you have a lot of backlog to manage. There is a lot of stuff from Empire that feels like it's continuing here, and this seems like it's probably gearing up for something big down the road.
This is where I would expect Empire to continue, given how it ended. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy after this, and it continues some in there too.
Okay.
It might be worth jumping on this book. It's your call. Here are some of the things that this book deals with. Some sort of multiversal, omniversal entity is stealing the most secure lockboxes on Earth, looking for something. Nobody knows what. Since nobody knows what, Nick Fury Jr. has Sue Storm, agent of S.W.O.R.D, former S.W.O.R.D? I don't know. Go to the Latvian embassy to steal the lockbox Doom has hidden behind a portrait of his mother. The last time Sue saw Doom, you weren't reading this, so you won't recall. Readers may recall that she made his mask invisible on a global television broadcast.
Oh, I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah. But this entity attacks anyway, so they team up, Victor and Victorious and Sue. And Victor just lets the entity take his safe, and then turns to Sue and says, we need to go talk to your husband, because he's coming for him next. Sue's response, of course, is, Reed has no secrets from me.
Sorry, did I laugh that out loud?
Like you have no secrets from him, agent of S.W.O.R.D? Okay, yeah, we better go. It turns out that there is, in fact, a secret chest locked up in the old Baxter building because it is immovable, locked to a fixed point in space. So the Fantastic Four and Franklin go to deal with it. They take Franklin because he's the only one who has the power to fight off this entity.
Okay, only because it's Reed and his big scientific and, but you realize if it was truly a fixed point in space, it wouldn't stay in the Baxter building, right?
Yes, that is, in fact, the first thing I thought when he said fixed point in space.
Because, the world's spinning and, moving and, around the sun, all kinds of things are moving.
All
right?
time travel is space travel.
Yeah.
I assume by fixed he meant geosynchronous.
Okay.
It is in low altitude geosynchronous orbit.
just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But he leaves Valeria at home to babysit Joe and Nikki, and Alicia to babysit all of them. Nobody can deal with this entity except Franklin, who ends up burning out the last of his powers.
Uh-oh.
Which is going to be important in a moment. Valeria, being Valeria, spies through the comm system in the Baxter building to find out what's going on. Oh, also the Baxter building gets completely demolished by this thing, and the replacement Fantastic Four, the Fantastics, are covered in rubble. Valeria immediately realizes the solution to the problem after going and looking up what's in the box on her father's computer, and takes the not omniversal, but the anywhere in the universe teleporter she's working on, that she's cobbling together from all the, like, the Kree Omniwave broadcaster and some Krakoan gate material and all this stuff that's turned up lately that she's hodgepodging together. She takes that gate and basically has it absorb what turns out to be in the box is the original energy wave that creates and reforms universes in the Marvel universe. Like the zero energy wave that is responsible for the formation of the first universe and that gets broadcast to every time it resets, because canonically Marvel is in its 8th universe.
Right. Like the thing that destroyed it that Galactus was the only survivor of, and that whole thing.
Galactus, I think, was from the 6th and then survived into the 7th, and we're in the 8th after Secret Wars.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So she contains it, but now this gate, which can take you anywhere in the universe, anytime, instantaneously, is stuck on this low-altitude geosynchronous fixed point in space, there where the Baxter Building used to be. So now the Fantastic Four is moving back to the Baxter Building, which is a pile of rubble. So, like, the end of this issue is literally Reed and Sue sitting under, like, a canopy tent like you see in a graveyard. Outside of this gate, just standing watch. Ben and Alicia decide maybe we should just homeschool Joe and Nikki, because
probably a good choice.
Their perception of what you do as a normal human teenager in American school is gonna be dangerous.
I mean, either that or send them to Strange Academy, right? That would be the only.
The last thing those two need is magic.
That's fair.
But then Ben makes the comment, well, it'll be okay. Look how well Valeria and Franklin turned out. And then we cut to the two of them. Valeria has, like, covered her entire bedroom in whiteboards and is, like, on this manic high because she has solved a problem that her father couldn't solve in 10 years, containing this energy. While Franklin is, like, ripped down all of the posters of mutant performers that were on his walls earlier in the issue, and just despondent because not only has he lost his powers, the gates will no longer recognize him as mutant, so he no longer has his Krakoan identity that he had just started exploring either. So, like, they're both left in really bad places, as this gate is now, like, just in the middle of New York for anything to come through or anyone to try to go through.
To be fair, that doesn't mean that Franklin and Valeria turned out poorly, because I mean that's just run of the mill for anybody involved with supers and the Marvel.
Well, yeah, and like, I mean, teenagers face identity crises.
Well, that's right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly.
But that's kind of the look how great these two kids are doing when they're, like, at probably the lowest point we've seen them, really.
Yeah, I do have, never mind. I answered my own question. I was about to say, I wonder why Nadia didn't invite Valeria to Girl. And then I realized, oh, right, because she was, like, traveling around the multiverse and not available, right? Yeah.
I still need them to team up, though.
I know.
And this leaves me the post-credit scene for this issue, which takes place on the moon. Did you ever get to read Fantastic Four Fallout, Brian?
Yes.
Do you remember who showed up at the end of that?
I do.
Big head, purple cape?
Yep.
So this scene takes place immediately after that. Uatu has returned and recognizes these weapons from Empire as being, like, a direct threat to the Watchers, who are the only thing in the universe older than whatever made these weapons, and enlists Nick Fury as his private soldier to go fight this war.
OG Nick Fury, right?
OG Nick Fury, formerly the Unseen.
Yeah.
So that's part of why I say, like, I think this is building up to something big.
Oh, yeah.
Like, continuity-wide big.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy #7 is a much quicker thing to break down. I just love it so much. there is a pan-galactic, basically
Gargle Blaster?
yes. Like a sort of nascent pan-galactic UN meeting, where the major species from across the universe each get to send a representative. So say you are Earth. Who would you send if you're Earth and Carol Danvers is busy?
Cap, maybe?
Close. He is a captain. He is the captain of the Nova Corps. He is Richard Rider.
Oh, okay, sure.
We know who the Kree representative is, or who the Skrull representative is. The Kree, there's a pair from the Kree Skrull Empire, one Kree, one Skrull. Kl'rt is there because he was named ambassador in Empire.
Okay, right. Oh, right, yes. He has to be a diplomat, right, yeah.
From the Kree Utopians is Marvel Boy, which is why this is a Guardians of the Galaxy issue. It's Marvel Boy and Richard Rider, who are both in Guardians right now. The running joke through this issue is that Marvel Boy's formal diplomatic wear for the Kree Utopia, the traditional Kree Utopian diplomatic wear, is basically an adamant costume.
Oh, shit.
A-D-A-M, not A-T-O-M.
Yes. Oh, yes. I knew exactly who you meant.
And here is why I wanted to talk about this issue, at least to mention it, because this is so, like, left field for Guardians of the Galaxy, which means it's going to be great for Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel Boy ends up being framed for 2 murders in a locked room mystery sort of way. And Richard Rider says, this is an Earth matter. We just agreed to use these rules for international diplomacy. That means I need to deal with him. And someone else says, well, can you do that objectively? Well, no, but by your definition of objectively, none of us can do this objectively. Well, who is here is not human, has no ties to Earth, and can investigate this?
Rocket
Raccoon, who has been sleeping off a hangover for the entire issue, shambles in on the last page.
That was an easy call.
It was, especially since Al Ewing wrote the Rocket book last.
Yeah.
And keeps picking up threads from it. I could not be more excited about where this is going if they paid me. Which they wouldn't have to, because I'll spend my own money on it. Unless they want to send review copy. If you're listening, Marvel, I will take review copy.
We will absolutely do that.
That goes for anybody who's not Comicsgate or Nazi affiliated. Anyway, yes, super excited for that. Great issue. More fallout of Empire.
Love it.
On to Ten of Swords.
Ooh, boy, here we go. I read a lot of this.
You did. We are, for official purposes, going to start with Hellions, but do you want to weigh in on anything that happened before that?
So I can tell you that I started literally at the point right when I think it's part 2 where they start gathering the champions and their swords.
Yeah, you were last here for part 1 creation.
Correct. And can I tell? This. Anybody that knows me, anybody that has listened to this podcast, this comes as no shock, no surprise, how ridiculously happy I am that they didn't even they didn't even have to give her a story. They just were like, yeah, we got these 10 champions. Oh, and here's the prophecy, and everyone's like, oh yeah, magic is the first one.
Yeah, no question.
Oh, you need someone to fight, and they need a sword. Well, okay, well, where's magic fit in?
Yeah.
So she's like the first one to hit her symbol and activate it and all that.
How great is Solem?
Oh my god. Amazing. Oh my god. Hands down my favorite of the Orokas. Oroko's champion. Yes. Hands down.
Orinoco Flow.
Yeah. And the fact that he is Logan's opposite just makes it that much better.
Yeah. I remember Ben Percy tweeting that he was trying to that he was going to be introducing Wolverine's equivalent of Loki, and I was like, there's no way that'll work. That's insane to me. No, I'll admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong.
You were wrong, because this guy's amazing.
Solem is great. Give me a Solem solo series.
Don't be surprised if we get that, by the way. Because
I won't. I'll be more surprised if we don't.
Well, and the fact that what I love about it is he doesn't hate or is jealous of Wolverine or anything else. He's just like, he kind of likes Wolverine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So we get Wolverine gets a Muramasa blade again.
You get a Muramasa, and you get a Muramasa.
Nope, just the two of them, just Solomon and Logan.
I didn't say everyone.
Right. And so they get they both get that. Storm goes to Wakanda. That was a great issue. Or
Vita
maybe
Ayala.
2 issues.
No, just one.
Okay. I think she went there in one, and then the story actually happened in one.
But, nope, yeah. It was all in one.
Was it?
That was one issue. It was just a very well-paced issue.
Okay. But man, was that good. That was so good. Because she has to get essentially what is the most prized artifact possession of Wakanda.
Yeah.
And it was super easy to forget that she was married to T'Challa and was queen there for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That issue was tragic and wonderful, and I love it very much.
And I love how they're dealing with the fallout of it all too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super good. We get Doug Ramsey and Warlock.
That's New Mutants, though. We're gonna get there.
Oh, are we? Okay.
Yeah.
So next would have been what? Hellions?
That is where we begin.
Okay, that is where we begin. So, Mr. Sinister comes up with this brilliant plan to that the champions have to get the specific people have to get these specific swords and activate their runes so that they can meet for this contest. And he gets the brilliant idea of, well, if we steal one of the swords that they have to get, then they will basically not be able to show up, and they'll have to forfeit. And then we don't have to fight, and we still win.
Why do this the right way when we could cheat?
To which, surprisingly enough, the Quiet Council agrees.
With a caveat, they're gonna send Sinister along too.
And can I say, so there has to be 5 votes in order for it to pass, and there's only 4, and Mr. Sinister's like, okay, well, thank goodness, and then insults Magneto.
And Polaris.
And Polaris. Actually, he really insults Polaris, which offends Magneto, and Magneto goes, yeah, I'm going to change my vote. You need to now lead this team on this mission.
I love this version of Sinister so much.
Yeah.
And everything he does in this issue is just golden. Between
it is.
I mean,
between
the argument
rock, paper,
with
himself to figure out which one of his clones is going.
Yes. To trading his cape for a horse.
Yep. To Jamie Braddock, right?
Oh, Jamie Braddock. Jamie Braddock, you absolute piece of shit.
Yes. Yeah, because he's going to be back again later.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're going on this mission to try to do this, and I can't even, you just know it's going to go badly.
Well, and, the thing I love about the way this whole series is set up is, they're going to turn up like a bad penny.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be in the middle of something, and they're just going to show up and ruin shit, and it's going to be glorious because Mr. Sinister.
Uh-huh. Pretty much. Well, and the rest of them, none of the rest of them are any better, hardly.
Well, no, but I love this version of Mr. Sinister.
I do, too. I really, really do. I'm 100% with you on that. So that's the other thing that we need to point out is they did realize that when Rockslide was killed on Otherworld,
this was X Factor. That's the one we were missing.
There you go. That was the
that was part 2.
Oh right, yes, you're right. That was part 2. That they realized that because he died on Otherworld, that
He came back, but he came back wrong.
Yeah, that it basically
This is X-Men
corrupted
Pet
and
Cemetery.
oh my god, I, I'm not even. I'm just gonna keep going like you didn't even say that.
It's fine. It's the
That
episode title now.
because in Otherworld, because it's the nexus of all realities, etc., that like if they bring someone back who died in Otherworld, they will come back and it will be them, but it is somehow it's like going to a character creation screen and hitting the random button.
Yep.
Like you get pieces of them from all possibilities of all worlds to create the new one.
And you know what I say to that? Let's reroll Scott Summers.
Here's the thing. You realize this is not the only person this is going to happen to.
Oh no, it has to happen to someone.
Yeah.
At
So
least one someone.
right. So but the point being, they have essentially halted all resurrection. They temporarily halted all resurrections until they figured out what it was.
And
Now
destroyed all the eggs.
right now that they know what it is, essentially they have banned anyone from going to Otherworld. And obviously, they're making exceptions like for this mission. But understand that if anybody dies while on Otherworld, while on this, they will not come back, or certainly will not come back as who they are now.
Yeah. This basically makes them X-Men Suicide Squad.
Exactly. That was the point I was getting to. Is congratulations, the Hellions are now Mutant Suicide Squad.
I also want to know, like, with the Hellions, you really can't. I mean, I'm sure there's a way for them to come back worse, but the odds are almost like there'll be an improvement.
Like, I'll say it this way: like, if you're rolling random numbers to generate these people, right? The odds are with you. You're gonna improve them.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say it. Yeah.
We also learn here that Sinister definitely has a secret clone farm and is in fact bribing people like Jamie with their own backup secret clones.
Uh-huh.
No way that goes badly.
No,
he says, having read House
all.
of X and Powers of 10.
Not at all. So we don't have a resolution to this yet. This team is still out there doing their thing. We'll find out what happens at some point in this story.
Yep. Meanwhile, in New Mutants, we get one of Alex's favorite X-Men characters
Warlock
and one of Brian's favorite X-Men characters.
Warlock the Sword?
Warlock and Magic.
Yeah. Yeah. So Doug Ramsey is one of the chosen people, and Warlock is the sword that he will wield.
Doug Ramsey, who just had that great moment of not being able to fight in the Empire crossover.
Correct. And, like, but he's like, I know I'm not a fighter, but I can't ask someone else to stand in. First of all, we don't know if they'll accept a substitute. Second of all, I can't ask somebody else to potentially die for me.
Yeah.
Right. So Magic takes it upon herself to try and train him as best she can.
Yeah. Part of me wonders if Doug won't be. I mean, there's the reason against this. He's kind of the obvious, oh, hey, he gets reset on the multiversal reroll table.
Right.
But, like, the flip side of that is if he goes, then presumably Warlock goes. And what happens if you have to reroll them both at the same time? Well, and that's some math that, like, I am curious to see what that would yield in a way that makes me think maybe that is something we'll actually get.
So I see two choices here, right? One is, that's kind of and they're definitely leading you down that path, right? Because, like, at the end of this, Magic is like, yeah, you've gotten a lot better, blah blah blah. And he was like, so you think I stand a chance? And she's like, no, absolutely not. If you pick up a sword and go into this fight, you're gonna get killed. Like, not because she doesn't, but like it's the children of Apocalypse who took Apocalypse down.
Yeah.
Who the mutants like Magic who can combat can't stand up against. So it's just that who they're going up against is that caliber of whoever, right?
Yeah.
So
a real Excalibur.
The obvious thing is that Doug's gonna die and get brought back in some different incarnation, right?
Yeah.
The other way that I see this going, and by the way, Krakoa is really against Doug going
Yeah.
because Doug is essentially his voice, right? The other way I see this going is there's a very specific reason that Warlock is his sword, and that it's not going to be a combat encounter.
Yeah.
It's going to be something else where Warlock is very much gives him a distinct advantage.
I also think there's an advantage to Doug going that is so, like, not brought up that makes me think it's going to be important later.
Mm-hmm.
If Doug can talk to Krakoa, Doug can talk to Arakko.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And the other thing that he mentions is as he's at the end of this, as he's fighting magic, is he starts to understand and read that her body language is specifically in combat is functioning as a language, which he's beginning to understand. Right.
Yep.
So it makes me think that that could be something as well. But regardless, there's a lot of magic in this, and I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Magic and Warlock. We need more of both. Cable number 5. Meanwhile, along the watchtower.
So, oops, maybe don't power on space stations for which you don't know why everyone is gone from.
Yeah.
You know what this reminds me of, Alex? You know what powering up the space station where everyone has mysteriously vanished from is like?
Willingly walking into any cabin in the woods?
It's a lot like reading from the book, sir.
Nah, I could see some benefits to that.
I love it.
I don't see what you're getting at, Brian.
I'm sure you don't. Yeah, it turns out that on this space station S.W.O.R.D, they created a gate to somewhere. And okay, my question was, when I saw these folks, were these things from a Technarch society?
I remember wondering the same.
Okay, because I really, just from their kind of appearance, right? I really got the like, they're not like Warlock, right? Where they're clearly the bioorganic technology type thing.
Yeah.
But there was just something about them that made me kind of lean in that direction ish, maybe.
I remember wondering the same, but I don't remember why I wondered the same.
But so Cable pulls the plug on it, and they manage to destroy all the creatures that have come through, which are very human-esque, but not. The other thing I did notice, and this was super curious to me, did you notice their feet?
No, Brian, I'm not into that.
Well, I'm not either, but there was one page that, like, just the way it was, the characters were presented, the angle and all that, like, their feet. They essentially, most of them look like they had 2 toes, which looked a lot like Nightcrawler to me.
Huh. I wonder, and I wouldn't have thought this at the time because we learned this, I think, more clearly in X-Men 13. But there's that talk in X-Men 13 of the place that attacked Arakko in the first place being like this rift between worlds.
Yep.
I wonder if this gate isn't tied into that same place.
Yeah, that would certainly make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because like if it's tied into where the forces that originally attacked Okara and split Okara into Arakko and Krakoa, if it's tied into where they came from, that would also make it make sense. Why are we spending time on a sword base in Ten of Swords?
Correct. Yeah, so Cable's able to pull the plug, pull the Sword of Galador out, and basically then he takes it and does show up. You know, it is the sword that he is to wield in the contest.
Yeah.
Can I say how much I love the art in this book, specifically how Scott and Jean are drawn?
It's very good.
Jean is just beautiful in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that pretty much takes care of that one. I do like Magic's comment because Cable shows up and says, "Yep, here I am with my new sword, the Light of Krakoa." And her comment is, "You told me it had a different name when you were from outer space." Don't change your sword name. That's lame. I love it. So yeah, so we get another. We basically get another character in position. I will say I do have this. I do have this image in my mind because basically the end of every one of these issues, right, is the new person coming and putting their sword on and activating the rune for them, and all the previous people are still there, right? So I just get this impression of like Magic's been standing on this thing with her sword and Wolverine next to her for 5 days now, like just standing there. Can you people please hurry up?
I mean, we probably should point out that from creation number 1
Yeah.
to the fight, they've got 48 hours?
Yeah, it's like 2 to 3 days. Yeah.
Mostly it's just a really good thing all of them have gates they can take everywhere except Apocalypse, who still has to take a jet to Egypt.
Yeah. So yeah, but that pretty much wraps up our Cable story.
Yep.
Our
then
next
we
one
get to Excalibur.
Oh, wow. This one might have been kind of the meatiest as far as a lot happening and trying to understand what was going on.
Which makes sense because Otherworld is Excalibur territory.
And this takes place completely there. Yeah.
So before we get deep in here, one of the things we haven't talked a lot about is in each book there's a page or two about the different swords.
Yeah.
And early on in this one we see the data sheet for the Sword of Might. And there was a detail in here that I read and I went, huh? Place of origin unknown, however presumed to be from Galador.
I saw that as well. Yes.
So it and the Light of Galador are both Space Knight swords?
Why is this presumed to be from Galador?
I wonder if it's some old piece of Marvel history errata.
I wonder. Well, and right, it says said by Roma to be forged in the fires of creation and tempered by the power of the universe. So yeah, that's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm doing a quick Google search and every result I get is specifically talking about this event. So I don't even know how to go back and find was this always a thing?
I don't know. But Captain Britain being Betsy, right, was already at the Citadel of Light with Saturnine, and Jamie and Brian both show up. Brian has with him the Sword of Might, and Jamie is, of course, wearing the cloak from Sinister.
Mm-hmm.
I was super happy to see that.
Yeah.
And Jamie is clearly also thirsty for Saturnine.
So thirsty. Unfortunately for him, Saturnine is thirsty for someone else.
Yeah, that would be for Brian. So that's a lovely little way. Of course, Jamie doesn't care. He just, whatever.
Yeah.
But
I feel like Jamie doesn't care. It's just Jamie's default.
I think you're absolutely right. But yeah, there's a big conflict between Brian and Betsy because Brian is essentially saying, yeah, you can turn the amulet back over to me and, I'll be Captain Britain again. And she's like, what makes you think I want to? And he has brought for her the Sword of Might. His thinking was he would show up and Betsy would take the amulet, or Betsy would give him the amulet and take the Sword of Might, right?
Right.
And she's like, no. And so they actually even get into an actual fight about it. And Saturnine's
Which, obviously, having read this now,
yeah.
there's an asterisk on that.
Uh-huh.
But I will also say that fight was really the first place where it's are these two up to something? This feels extreme for them. And then it turned out they were, in fact, up to something.
Maybe.
I do enjoy a good two-man
By the way, Brian, because he is wielding the Sword of Might, has a new title now, since he is not Captain Britain.
He is now Captain Avalon, protector of Jamie.
Of the entire Braddock family, to be fair.
Yeah, but mostly the one who rules Avalon.
Right, yeah, sure. Um, and then we get the other Captain Britain, the only existing members of the Captain Britain Corps now, which are these odd Rogue and Gambit and Jubilee and Richter. Is it
Yeah.
Richter?
Richter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so mad about the Jubilee captain.
Yeah, because Jamie doesn't deal well with being attacked by them and ends the Jubilee one.
I hope she's okay and just gets like a cool eye patch or something.
But that leads to them basically fighting them and everything else. That's when Brian draws the sword and becomes, well, technically, I love how this happened. Brian was refusing to draw the Sword of Might.
Uh-huh. He had it in the
And
scabbard.
so essentially Gambit throws a card at him and it hits the scabbard and essentially dissolves the scabbard, so the only thing he's left holding is the sword. So he's drawn it.
Yep.
And that's when he becomes Captain Avalon. I love it. Um and Saturnine essentially after this says, okay, yeah, no, basically all of the Captain Britain Corps at this point, these three plus Betsy are invalid and corrupt, and we're going to hold them in prison until we figure out what how they can face justice. And and she's like, so you can turn over the amulet to me now. And Betsy's like, no, I don't think so, and destroys it.
Yep.
So the amulet of right is gone now, which does not sit well with Saturnine at all. So she's
Because
like, you
now
know
she
what?
can't make more Captains Britain.
Right. So she's like, you know what? Um, that's the way that Roma and Merlin did it. So now that I'm going to be in charge of choosing who they are, I'm going to come up with a new way. And she essentially draws uh, from the life force of the Starlight Citadel itself to form a new sword. And I believe the Starlight Sword,
Yes.
right? And
Which is, of course, a reference to Andrew Lloyd Webber's Starlight Express.
wow. So she creates this and says that she is going to give it to Brian so that he can become the first new Captain Britain again. And he said, okay. And she's like, yeah, but before that, why don't you come keep me company? And so while Brian is over distracting her, um, Betsy comes in and picks up the Starlight Sword and becomes the new Captain Britain, or remains the Captain Britain, I guess.
Yep.
And now has the Starlight Sword, which is what she needed to fight in the battle.
Yep. And she and Brian go and join the circle.
And it turns out both of them are sword wielders for
Yep.
2 of the 10 sword wielders. So Brian has the Sword of Might, and she has the Starlight Sword. Love it.
And that takes us to X-Men 13, where...
So just to point out at this point, so now that leaves 3. There are 3 unclaimed spots.
Yes. Well, X-Men 13 is going to clear up one of those spots, because we heal up Apocalypse and get some lore of Krakoa, Arakko, and Okara.
We do.
And the mask that possesses its wearer and basically pushes all this bloodshed forward.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I think this was very telling for overall where this story's going to go, right? Is we have Genesis, who was Apocalypse's wife, right?
Yes.
Who, when they're split, basically says, we're going to seal the breach. Arakko will hold as long as we stand, as long as we breathe, right? Watch us in Sabanur. We will show you what a mutant does for their people. And he says, I want to go with you. And her response is, and yet we both know you can't, my love. You're not strong enough.
Yeah.
Stay. Use what time we buy you to make this world into something that can stand against our enemy. So literally, the reason they left him behind was to all the things that he did in creating and strengthening and testing and bringing the mutants of Earth, of our Earth to the point that they're at, in hopes that they are strong enough to stand against this enemy.
Yeah. There's even Does she have another line a little bit further past that?
She's judge them is what she says, so that you will become what we need.
Oh,
See that only the fittest remain.
That's that. Like, see that only the fittest remain.
Yeah.
Feels like suddenly the. I mean,
history
that's
of
his
apocalypse.
whole. Yeah, that's his whole MO.
Yeah, exactly.
That's his thesis statement.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, you get you now understand what his motivation was for all that he did, right?
Yeah.
And so, now that he's healed, essentially, then we see him travel to Egypt, go in, and we see the 4 sarcophagus of these people who were the original horsemen, where he makes the comment of, I built this as a pyramid as a monument to the dead, but now I know it's a monument to the living because they're not dead, they're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And so he smashes it and takes the 4 pieces of his sword and puts it back together.
Yeah. So do we know who the 2 missing swordsmen are?
I feel like we know one of them. We do. One of them is Gorgon, right?
Okay.
And that's mentioned in, I think, back in X Factor number 4, when Polaris gives out the prophecy of who they are. Because I think basically they kind of identify them there, right? It's on the text page, right? Where it says, the first one, 8 years gone, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Yana seemed to snatch this up pretty quick. It's the comments from somebody, right? It's like,
Nightcrawler, I think.
This one's Cable, etc. We get Warlock and Doug. This one has to be Storm. I'll be honest, this one stumped me a little, but Logan seemed to identify it. I'm not sure I got anything special about this one, but it seems like the Braddock twins. And then Ego, Death, and Broken Stone. 2 wars waged by 1 champion alone. Gorgon showed up pretty quickly when he heard we were talking swords, and he's positive this one's for him. Someone else can talk him out of it if they want. And then we have a father forsaken, a husband betrayed, and that's obviously 2 dots, right?
Yeah.
And that's all we have. They don't identify the last in the prophecy, which I thought was super interesting. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm looking at preview pages and for Stasis, and I don't see anyone unaccounted for, although there is a variant cover that has a character who is not accounted for that would make sense.
So yeah, if you look through this prophecy, there are 9 who are named.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. So I think they're leaving one unidentified on purpose for right now.
Gotcha.
I can't state as to why that is, but there we go.
Well,
and
I bet we learn.
That catches us up to where we are. That brings us to next week's Ten of Swords Stasis number 1.
Yep, which is the halfway point.
Which is that's halfway through this. So clearly we're going to get, the last reveal of who it is. The fight is going to start, and then, the second half of this is going to be the actual contest, and what else is really going on, and, how the contest is going to be a distraction from what really has to be taken care of. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's, those people coming through, the enemy. I would imagine they have to fit into this somewhere, because that was the whole purpose, right?
Well, we've also had data pages on every realm in Otherworld.
Yes.
Without seeing most of them.
Correct.
So I wonder if there's going to be like a what's the reality show, Amazing Race kind of factor, where like they're having to traverse Otherworld as they do it. I
was thinking that, or like Contest of Champions, right, where they're all or secret. I guess it's Secret War, where there's like the world that's kind of put together, and they have
Battle
to fight.
World.
Yeah, battle. Or they have to fight in different areas, right?
Yeah. All right. Is it still good, or why does Alex do this to himself?
Yeah. You heard everything I read this week, folks. So this is all Alex.
Once in future number 12, Nimue shows up to show Percy how to also be what was the bad CGI movie with Angelina Jolie?
Beowulf?
Yes, thank you. Something is killing the children number 11. The leader of the bureaucracy that or the bureaucratic organization that Erica works for decides it's time to send in the cavalry. and that's a bad thing. Seven Secrets number 3. I'm starting to get the feeling that maybe this whole first arc is kind of like origin story, and I'm digging it. We see the son of the previous holder, or previous keeper, audition to become the new holder. Aquaman 64. It's like a major battle on your wedding day, EA. Batman 101.
Oh, that's ironic. Or not.
Yeah. Batman 101. Batman and Selina have an important conversation, and then more importantly, Grifter shows up.
Yeah.
Batman at one point turns to Grifter, he's like, I know who you work for. You mean Lucius Fox? No, who you really work for, and tell them I know about Halo. I don't know what's going on, but then there are like storm clouds behind Grifter as Batman swoops away, and like, are we getting some sort of weird Stormwatch thing going on in Gotham? I don't know. I'm very excited. I need more. I love Grifter. Batman and the Outsiders number 17. This is one of the strongest last issues of a series that I have ever read.
Wow.
It is very much an epilogue kind of issue, and every character in it, I want to see what comes next for them. Catwoman number 26. The Penguin hires an assassin named Father Valley to kill Selina, and Selina decides to take down a drug trafficker. Strange Adventures number 6. Mr. Terrific and Alana have an earnest conversation about their dead children.
Oh.
Did you read? You didn't read this one.
I have not yet. It's one of the ones I was hoping to get to.
The last page of this. I'm not going to say what, but just, the last page of this.
Okay.
Then they take a month off. Superman number 26. Superman continues his letting everybody air their grievances tour, and we learn about the secret protections the Justice League installed in the Daily Planet, which are only secret because Perry White emailed everyone and not everyone read his memo. Wonder Woman number 764. Wonder Woman and Maxwell Lord reenact Miami Vice, and Maxwell Lord is up to shady shit. Gasp.
Shocker.
Stillwater number 2. We see Tommy, I think that's his name, go on trial for being an outsider in Stillwater, and his mother also have to deal with the consequences of having sent him away and letting him return. Amazing Spider-Man number 50 and 50.LR. 50 sees Spider-Man go to Doctor Strange for help with his spider buddies who have been possessed by Kindred, as Norman Osborn tells us who Kindred is.
Oh!
In 50.LR, Norman makes a plan to bring someone into the picture to try to reason with Kindred, while Spider-Man has to deal with everyone attacking him. So, quick aside on these, if you read the back matter in 50.LR, the last remains issues after this one are really not going to focus much on Spider-Man Peter Parker, but will focus on Norman and the other spider people, the Order of the Web, I think they were called.
Oh, right, yeah.
While the not .LR issues will be more about Spider-Man. Also, you kind of need to read these issues as being like a pair of issues that are non-linear, because parts of 50.LR, the Spider-Man parts of 50.LR happen before the Spider-Man parts of, between the Spider-Man parts of 50, there's a time jump. But all of the Norman stuff happens after 50. It's a little confusing at first, but it does all eventually line up if you just take the two together as being non-linear.
Okay.
Avengers 37, the only thing that this book needed more than it already had was Moon Knight becoming the Phoenix. Captain Marvel number 22. You remember the future from Captain Marvel The End?
Yeah.
Carol goes to visit.
Boy.
Daredevil number 23. Daredevil and Spider-Man make amends after tormenting Wilson Fisk and the new Kingpin appointed by Mayor Fisk. And this book has just the best hug in it. Immortal Hulk number 38, significantly less hugging than Daredevil. The leader makes his plans and himself known as he launches three attacks at once. Iron Man number 2. Tony needs to start paying Hellcat if he's going to use her as a therapist, or just needs to start doing the emotional labor himself. One of the two. PSA, guys, the women in your lives are not just there to do the emotional labor for you. Juggernaut number 2.
I mean, you would see why Tony would be bad at not realizing that.
Yes, I understand, and I think it's a good issue for it, but like, the best, as with number 1, the best parts of it are Hellcat calling him on his bullshit.
Yeah.
Also, at some point, Brian, I'm going to need you to give me the history of the Korvac saga, because apparently that's going to be important, and I don't know who the fuck Korvac is, other than I've heard of the Korvac saga.
Okay.
Juggernaut number 2. Remember how we speculated that there would be a different angle on the Juggernaut versus the Hulk fight?
Yep.
The end game of the fight is to cage the Hulk long enough for everyone in this small town where they fight to air their grievances with him. At which point, Juggernaut has an identity crisis and realizes he is no better than the Hulk himself. And then the Hulk teleports away because he just wanted to embarrass Juggernaut publicly. Spider-Woman, number 5. Everybody in Spider-Woman's life sucks, and I'm glad she finally fucking calls Carol Danvers.
Good.
Venom number 29, we learn the secret history of Codex, and it's sad. And also, I need an entire book that is Venom's son's mother as Venom and Spider-Man teamed up together, because those two are a fun pair. The Vein number 1, this is a new ongoing from Oni about blood bank robbing vampires. The FBI agent trying to investigate them, and what happens when all of them instead end up fighting in World War II. A twist I did not see coming. The Devil's Red Bride. What if Mulan, but bloody?
I'm glad I picked that one up. I picked up The Vein too. I just haven't gotten to either one of those yet.
Heist or How to Steal a Planet number 7. Sometimes when you are a con man hated by the entire world that you're accidentally responsible for selling to evil space Amazon, the only people you can rely on are your dog and your robotic bird. Sarah and the Royal Stars, number 8. We learn some family history and secrets and realize there is a lot more going on than what we thought. Shadow Service number 3. Sometimes you have to let the right ones in. Vagrant Queen, A Planet Called Doom, number 5. We finally see Brother John unmasked. This week's books to read there. This week's books to read.
Woo woo.
Sex Criminals, number 69. The last issue of Sex Criminals, 3 years and 3 months into the future of the series. I'm mostly just mentioning it because, like, I feel like the hiatus happened and then the last 2 issues to come out were both delayed a little bit, and I just don't want anyone who's looking forward to it to miss it.
Well, there you go.
Colonel Weird Cosmagog, number 1.
Yeah, this is by far the strangest character that exists in Black Hammer, and hopefully this is going to give us a bit more of his backstory and what happened. Yeah, this was another one that was scheduled like way back in like March or something, and got pushed way out, and now we're finally going to get it.
Yep. Giga, number 1. I think this was originally solicited for May.
Yeah.
And I believe has set the record for the most pre-ordered Vault book. The number 1 has already sold out at distributor level and has been sent back for a second printing. It's about a society built on, like, the dead husks of old mechs. Wind, number 5.
Yeah, so this was this is the last issue of this first trade or arc. So this is the one that was, I think it was a Kickstarter project, right?
I don't think so. It was announced if it was, that's news to me. But I think it was I think it was just announced as an original graphic novel.
As like a OGN only, right?
Yeah.
And they decided to put it out in single issues. And so they split it into 5, and this is the final issue of that first trade there. And then you were telling me before the show that they're going to try and continue, because originally they had said it was going to be 3 OGNs.
Yes.
Right?
So this is where I will suggest, if you are a fan of James Tynion or just reading anything he's writing, you really want to subscribe to his newsletter, because you get a lot of like information about what his plans are and things like that in it. And this is where this information comes from. So this was originally planned to be a series of, I believe, 3, it might be 4, but I'm like 90% sure it was 3 graphic novels. And they were going to come out annually. And that's still the plan, but with the asterisk that they're going to, as they did with this arc, when each graphic novel is done, go ahead and release 5 issues and then put out the graphic novel.
Yeah.
So they said, think of it as like an annual event for the next couple of years.
Yeah. So, super, super good book. I've read the first 4 of them, I think, first 3, something like that.
Yeah.
And they are really, really good. I enjoy them very, very much.
Yeah. And like, I don't think we've got time for this whole conversation,
Nope.
But I think that we're going to see it become more common to have these sort of untraditional publishing schedules. Actually, Chew is going to do the same thing. Chew's going to be like once a year a new 5-issue arc comes out.
And we may talk about it a little bit next week when we do solicitations, because there's some interesting things going on there.
Yeah. But I think we're going to see creators doing more stuff that's geared toward writing a whole graphic novel and then maybe splitting it up, or maybe not.
Yeah, I agree.
Last one, by way of PSA, the Marvel series that I was most worried would not come back from the hiatus. On Friday, Marvel announced would be out this Wednesday. Runaways number 32. So if you are reading Runaways, we're reading Runaways, want more Runaways, because that last arc ended in a really dark place. This is the beginning of the new arc. This is the build up to the 100th total issue of Runaways, which will be number 34. And yeah, it's out this week. I'm assuming that they're just having Diamond ship the same number of copies of number 32 as stores ordered for number 31. That seems to be how stuff like this normally happens on these surprise releases.
Well, and they stores should have put in orders for this issue way back, right?
Yeah, well, it really depends. I don't know if those, because a lot of those solicitations Diamond canceled, even if like online shops did.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so who knows?
Yeah, it's really up in the air. It may be, like you suggest, that they've passed those on. It may be that Marvel just said, yeah, send them one of these for each issue of 31. In any case, if this is a book you're reading, keep an eye out. Maybe give your comic shop a heads up that, hey, I definitely am still interested in reading this and want it.
Yep.
If you do.
Yep. All right.
Yep. All right, that's it. This was another long one this week.
Ooh, yeah, it was.
As always, thanks to Chase Parker for our intro voiceover. You can find us on our website at panelologypodcast.com, on Patreon at patreon.com/panelology, bit.ly/panelology merch, capital P, capital M for merch, or bit.ly/panelology mailbag, capital P, capital M, to send us correspondence. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian. Go read comics, like I need to do a lot of this week.